Welcome. I'm excited about the interest that everybody had in this topic. So I'm going to do my best. I've got multi screens here, which I don't usually do. So hoping this all works, but I think you should be able to see the slides. We are going to talk about selling into the US employee benefit market. And just to sort of ground us, the objectives today, at the end of this time, hopefully you will have a really good understanding of what an employee benefits program consists of, what the standard elements are, what kinds of things employers are buying these days, what kind of products, what kind of services, what kind of tech. Understand the purchasing process and who the different stakeholders are, because as you know, there are a lot of hands in the pot there. And then be able to start to think about your approach to the market, right? When you take your product to the US healthcare market in the employee benefit space, what kind of things are you going to need to think about to really be successful in terms of a product market fit, which market slice you're looking at, whether it's industry verticals or sizes, how you're going to access that target customer, and what the sales cycles are. Um, who am I that I'm talking to you about this? I run a company called Health GTM, and what I do is I help health tech companies go to market. Sometimes I will help them understand their competitors, their market footprint, what different target markets they should be going after, who are the stakeholders, where's the money coming from, right? Kind of everything that it requires to really grow and expand in the United States healthcare market. I do that from a background of and above the line are the companies I have worked for in my history. So I've worked for a number of different US health plans. I have worked for a number of different digital therapeutics companies. I've built networks of providers. I've created products in Medicare, Medicaid, commercial markets, small markets, large markets. And I've done a lot of work selling through channel partnerships into employer benefits. And below the line, you'll see some of the companies that I have worked with as Health GTM, bringing them to market. And you can see there's food, there's alcohol moderation, there's well-being, there's payments, there's mental health, there's hardware, there's software, there's AI. So a lot of different companies, and I'll come in and you know do projects with them or come in as a fractional executive and help them figure out their strategy. As a human being, I have done a lot of sort of journeying. I come from Connecticut, but I did spend some of my high school in the Upper Galilee. I came back and finished high school in Massachusetts. I went to New York City for college. I went to Tel Aviv to start my MBA. Moved to Florida, worked in Kansas, worked in Minneapolis, moved to New York, moved to Singapore, started my family there, moved back to New York. Um, and then ended right back up in my hometown of Stamford, Connecticut, where I raised my kids. And I now live in Ridgefield, which is a little bit north of that. On a health and wellness basis, I absolutely love trail running, rock climbing, kayaking, yoga, on those three kids in the middle who are now totally adults. So this is a very old photograph, but they are still my passion. All right. So with all of that, off we go. What is an employee benefits program? It's not just insurance. It is a total compensation strategy. And the point of it for the employer is they want to improve employee health and productivity. They want to reduce turnover because it is very expensive, as you know, to replace employees. They want to attract top talent with really competitive benefits and perks. And they want to support the financial, physical, and mental well-being of their employees. So the health insurance piece of it is foundational, but it's really only one piece of a much larger system. So typically, elements of an employee benefits program on the sort of left-hand column, you can see some fairly predictable things. You would expect benefits to cover major medical expenses, dental care, vision care, and then financial planning like life insurance and disability. And of course, employers in the US help their people plan for life after work, providing retirement benefits and access to health savings plans, retirement savings plans, even estate planning guidance. And finally, some of the benefits even cover the cost of working, like childcare and transportation. Um, When you move into the right-hand column, now you're looking at benefits that are more around integrating life with work. And they used to talk a lot about work-life balance, work-life separation. There is no more separation, as you know. So ideally, we look at this as employers taking an interest in the 360-degree view of their employees and their families. There's a lot of talk about bringing your whole self to work and supporting our teams in every aspect of life. You could take a cynical view and say that employers are creating ecosystems that manage any obstacles to employees performing at their best and being productive. But either way, the system of employee benefits has become really comprehensive. At the same time, there's more of a push to put both the cost and the responsibility for access into the employee's hands. So, what does this mean for you? Well, it means if your solution helps employers support employees in and out of the workplace, if it increases benefits literacy, which means that employees know what they have available to them and make use of the services that the employer has paid for, if your solution reduces the cost and the administrative burden of benefits in general, then you have a value proposition to sell to employers, as well as their advisors and the health plan, which we will talk about a little bit later. If your solution enables employees to feel healthier, to feel more independent, more in control of their work life, better able to understand their benefits, more in control of their actual health and the cost of healthcare, be able to take care of themselves and their families, or if it gives them better ability to navigate the complexities of the insurance world and the funding, then you have a value proposition to employees. The next two visuals are really crowded and they have a lot of detail, but the message to take away is that when you're playing in the benefit space, you want to be sensitive to a number of factors. So for one thing, industry verticals influence the packages that are generally offered. There are kind of commonly accepted standards within different industries. So generally speaking, high tech and the advanced professions like law and medicine, other industries with highly educated, highly compensated employees are going to offer more flexibility and more human-centric packages. Manufacturing and other legacy industries are going to offer less. Government in the US is pretty generous and it is a massive market. Again, kind of too much to go through in detail, but I'm happy to send anybody this deck. If you just contact me after, I'll send you all the slides if you want to take a deeper look at this. The takeaway here is larger employers have far more flexibility and autonomy as they buy these packages. And so they offer much richer employee benefit services. And the smaller employers, the smaller you go, more and more buy off the shelf canned products and much leaner benefits programs overall. So, what are employers buying as they look for value? Not surprisingly, the buzzword in benefits, as in every other industry, is AI. How can you use AI to improve benefits literacy? Again, that's sort of the employee understanding what they have available. That's a huge problem. Employers are buying so many services and offering so much, and the health plans are so complex, employees don't even know what they have available to them. So if you can improve benefits literacy, improve the way employees engage with their benefits, that they're actually using them, how are they navigating from one thing to another? If you are starting in one area of need that the employee has recognized, and maybe there are other needs that they're just becoming aware of, and you can help them get to those other services, leveraging the services that the employer or the health plan offer. That's really important. Targeting the right employees. So if you can provide a solution that's helping other solutions target the right employees or helping the employer or the health plan find people who need a particular kind of care and get them into that kind of care, then there's that's what they're sort of really looking for. The other thing is personalization, big buzzword. If you can personalize a journey to each employee, make it feel like this is really for them so that you can induce them to use the resources available to them and improve their health or increase their stickiness and their loyalty to the company, to their employer, or to their health plan, That's all, that's what they're buying, right? The ability to get that employee stickiness. There's a proliferation of apps across every area of health and wellness, and also programs to ease the administration of the benefits for both the employer and the employee. So now that you know what they're buying, the question is how are they buying it and how do you get to them? How do you sell to them? So size matters. We looked at how employer sizes a little bit impact the available choices. Size also impacts the buying journey. So the larger, highly capitalized entities have internal teams and they have external teams. Internally, they'll often have very structured human resources teams with areas of specialization in different areas like rewards and recognition. They'll have a medical team, a retirement team, a well-being team. And they also outsource a lot of the work to firms that specialize in human capital. Those firms also have highly specialized teams for every aspect of the benefits program. Same thing, they might have a nutrition practice, and they might have a diabetes practice, and they might have a retirement practice, and they might have a heart health practice, um, a cancer practice, even. And so together, so the large employers and the consulting firms will create and customize programs. And then importantly, they also monitor them together. So the ability to monitor, to measure, understand the value, really important. Mid-sized employers will use kind of a scaled down version of those internal teams. So they will probably have, and mid-sized, the definition of small, medium, and large varies depending on who you talk to. So I've taken kind of a common stab at this with these tiers, but you'll find it, the specifics will vary depending on who you're talking to. But mid-sized employers will typically have an HR department. They may have some specialization within that. They may not. They will almost definitely use a consultant to help them. They might use a consultant that specializes in the mid-market and that has some specialization of their own teams, but not quite as specialized as the larger firms. And then small employers will often participate in sort of pooled resources or just go it alone. So they'll probably have a broker. They might participate in a PEO or some other sort of aggregating entity. Or they might just sort of get what they can get, take whatever the health plan offers, et cetera. So again, if you can sell through a health plan and be able to offer more variety and more choice to small employers, there's a little bit, there's some value proposition there. So we're going to start to really dig into how you sell to employers. It's important to identify which employer segment or segments you want to target, understand the key stakeholders in their decision process, and then be sure to touch each one of them. So before we go any further, I'm just going to preface, of course, you will be employing best practices in sales techniques, right? You're going to know your champion, your economic buyer, your technical buyer, your decision maker. You'll go through the A to Z sales process. I'm not going to dive into the basics of sales on the call. I'm just going to call out the specifics of how that applies across the employer market and how to approach that. So with that said, when you're selling to large employers, you want to talk directly to the appropriate team. If it's benefits, human resources, total rewards, finance, whatever group that's addressing your specific offering, and build relationships with that company's external advisors, like those large consulting firms. You can reach out to their health plan or their TPA. It might only be administering the claims and providing the network, but it is a stakeholder. And if you win the business, you will probably have to integrate with them or interface with them in some way. So it's good to have some sort of base level of communication beforehand. So in other words, you have a three-pronged strategy, right? It's the employer, the advisor, and the administrator. It is most effective to work all three angles. You'll have a better chance of success. It can involve a fairly significant investment in the sales effort, whether you're doing it as a human being or digitally, but it does pay off. But remember, in the large and jumbo space, risk aversion is really high, right? A new innovative solution is a risk, and nobody wants to be the one who chose the vendor that failed. So you need to come armed with something, some kind of evidence to get them over that hurdle. Do you have case studies? Do you have peer-reviewed studies? Do you have proof points, customer recommendations, outcome studies, pilots that you've run, right? What can you show them? And then in terms of pricing and again, kind of getting them over that purchase hump, do you have any kind of a guarantee? Do you have cost share pricing basis? Do you have a stop loss of some sort? Can you like, how are you managing their financial risk? One thing to remember if you decide to target the large and jumbo space, those are some big attractive fish. But I always like to say there are only 500 Fortune 500 companies, and then you have to go downstream. So don't ignore the mid-size market. That is where mid and small size market is where most of America's businesses are. More employees in the large market, but more companies in the mid market. So we're going to back up for 1 second to this original slide. With mid-sized employers, it's a double-edged sword, right? There are more mid-sized companies, so your addressable market is larger. They do have slightly fewer employees overall, and you have to do more legwork to reach them because there are so many. So the customer acquisition cost can be just as high in the mid-market as in the jumbo market, and the revenue per unit is lower. So think about your delivery costs, think about your customer acquisition costs, think about how you can optimize your product and your model for the market you are going after. In the mid space, the internal human resources team probably exists. Like I said, they're probably more generalists. They're not as segmented by specialty. In the smaller of the mid-sized firms, the HR team might actually be serving double duty, like that benefits might, or benefits and human resources might not be their full-time gig. They might not use the large global consulting firms. They definitely are working with consultants who specialize in mid-market programs. So they'll probably need to find them and work through those consulting firms. The small employers might have a broker or some sort of advisor, like I said, or a PEO, but often they'll do the heavy lifting themselves. Often it's the founder who's doing that. I would think most of you are pretty familiar with the struggles of a founder wearing many, many hats as the business scales. That's what's happening in the small market. You can also reach any size employer by working through an affinity group, right? An affinity group is like any organizations that cater to employers that are similar in some regard. So that might include professional associations, lobbying groups, benefits captives, any place that caters to the needs of a group of similar employers, any place they aggregate, can be a sales partner for you in reaching that profile of employers. And as I said, if you pursue the mid-market or the small market, those employers are not usually offered a lot of choice and a lot of high service options. So if you can bridge that gap, if you can give them some of the services and flexibility that the larger employers have, that's a real advantage. So how much sort of customization can you offer? Clearly, we have a lot of problems in US healthcare, and that creates your opportunity, right? How can you help the employers? These are the battles they're fighting, right? It's a competitive labor market. It's hard to find the right people for the role. The replacement cost is exorbitant. The cost of benefits is really high. The average 1,000 life employer contracts with 15 different external solutions in benefits, which they then need to promote internally and manage and measure. So they have a lot of struggles as they look to put together their plans. The consultants and the health plans are also in a competitive market. They're also blamed for the tough pricing environment, how the system is so opaque, no one knows what's going on. They're supposed to bring solutions to employers and prove them every day. And then you have the employees, right, who need to navigate their options, know what's available. There's a lot of, competition between ROI and VOR, return on investment or value on investment. Are you actually getting money back from deploying your solution, or are you improving life in some less tangible way? Either one of them is a valid argument to make. It doesn't have to be a financial win. but the VOI's got to be clear and it's got to be something you can prove. So you want to pay attention to that. And even when you think about the market, the different point solution vendors are also, they're drowning in signal. The market's loud, it's competitive. Solutions can look alike to employers who have been burned by big promises and weak results. So any one of those might be a customer to you, right? So when you're thinking about your solution and the employer benefits markets, understand how you fit into this puzzle and all of these challenges, or better yet, how you solve one of these problems. And your solution can address any one of these stakeholders. So maybe open up kind of your thought process and be a little bit flexible in who you think of as your target market. It might not be the employer, or it might be the employer plus, and something that looks like a competitor might actually be a sales channel if you can boost their solution or improve it in some way or help them be more efficient. So be a little bit open to that idea, right? And the sweet spot is, of course, where all of this comes together, right? Is there a clearly identified problem? Which problem is it? Does the person whose problem you're solving know they have a problem? Sometimes as founders, we fall in love with our solutions. We really need to fall in love with our customer. So make sure you understand who your customer is and do they feel that problem? And are they in the position to pay for it? Is it a problem that is costing them money? And do they have the money to pay for the solution? If they don't, who else in that who else in that sales process has the funding for this and feels the problem? Right? That's really critical. We often have great solutions, but there's no financial model for it. So you have to have that lining up too. Think about how you're accessing your customer. Again, is it a health plan? Is it a TPA? Is it a PEO? Is it an affinity group? Is it a different vendor? Um, so that, if that starts to line up, and then how unique is your solution? How much better? How much cheaper? How much more effective? Like what is that? And if those things can line up, that's where you're going to succeed. So when you really get down to brass tacks and think about it, I apologize for the 4 questions with Pesach coming up. I couldn't resist. Um, so it's sales, right? These are the questions you always have to answer. And I promise we would not go through the basics. So we won't, we'll just review this through the employee benefits lens. Your product market fit. There are so many problems in employee benefits to solve for. Again, you've got benefits literacy, you've got cost of care, you've got delivery of care, you've got administration of all these solutions, administration of sort of like the access, the payments can be simplified, the payments can be alleviated. So, right, which of these many, many problems are you solving, and whose problem is it? Is there demand? Do they know it's a problem? Or do you have to pitch them on the idea that you're solving a problem? That's not going to knock you out of contention, but understand whether they're already clamoring for this solution that you're bringing, or are you having to not only make the case, pick me, but why are you even talking to me? And then again, where do the budget and the need intersect? Who finds this problem painful enough to pay you for it? How are you going to get, now you've identified your market, how are you going to get there, right? Does your buyer buy directly, or do they buy through another entity? Is there an organization or an affiliation that you can leverage to sell to your customer, where they're either gathering and you can be there and pitch, or they're already buying something from this other entity and you can become part of that, right? There are all kinds of associations where benefits are offered to the members, organizational members, corporate members, and you might be able to be a benefit. Who helps your customer pick their vendors? Again, if it's an employer of various sizes, you're going to need to work with consultants of different sizes. You might work with the health plan, you might work with other organizations. Are you providing any benefit or advantage or cost savings or um, efficiency improvement to that channel partner. And how many stakeholders, if you go through that channel, how many stakeholders are involved in the funding? Never forget to follow the money. Your competitors, are you competing directly or indirectly with others in this space? Do you have something that's entirely unique? And again, that means you have to then create the story of why this. Um, or do you just have relative advantages? And what are those advantages? Is it cost? Is it efficiency? Is it engagement? And how do you prove that? Right? Could you turn a competitor into a partner? Is there some way that you can sell with or sell through or improve their standing to improve yours? And then how can you slice up the maybe you slice up the customer market? Maybe they're competing really, really well in the large market and you're going to go for the small market because they are ignoring that completely. To think hard about your competitors. Maybe there's a way to team up, maybe there's a way to go around them, maybe you're going head to head and be ready for that battle. The sales cycles we didn't talk deeply about. They're less relevant every year. Once upon a time, there were true benefits seasons that sort of, quarter by quarter, things changed and there were quiet times. There are no more quiet times. It is just busy all the time in American benefits. You talk to consultants and they will tell you there used to be downtime. I promise you there used to be downtime. There is not. The one thing that continues to be true is open enrollment. Stop for a second and define that in case you don't know, but every sort of fall, employees are told this is what you're going to be offered as part of your benefits package. And then that's sort of like September, October, and then November, December, everybody's signing up for their benefit. They're all registering. By the way, if you solve a problem in the registering process, that's huge. The registration, how do I select the right plan for me? How do I assess it? How do I sign up for it? That's actually a major pain point. They're signing up November, December, and then the month of January is usually characterized by cleaning up all the chaos and all the mistakes that happened during open enrollment period. So when you're selling, it's pretty safe to wait till February when all of that noise calms down, unless you're solving for those enrollment problems. Because then maybe it's a good idea to call them in January when they're suffering, right? And get that idea out. So think about the different cycles of the year, what's happening in the buying process at that time, and be able to deliver the right message to the right audience at the right time. So, sort of key takeaways: respect the variety, right? There's so much going on. Think hard about which problem, what market. Are you better suited to a particular industry? Are you better suited to a particular geographic space? Are you better suited to a particular size of market? Everything has different buying patterns. Everything has different channels that they buy through. So that's a really important kind of nut to crack as you go to market. Map out your path. They're not buying alone. So are you selling to employers through their health plan? Are you selling by making sure their advisors, their consultants know about you and promote you? Does your solution actually solve a problem for the consultant? And you want to talk to the employer about, oh, your consultant has this problem, it's impacting you. Help me get to your consultant, right? Like how are you going to get to your target market through all the different stakeholders? The employer health plan and consultants are the three big ones, but they are certainly not the only ones. And you can sort of learn more about who the other channel partners could be, who else is helping on that buyer's journey to be able to better address your specific target market. Always follow the money. Who is able to fund that purchase? Who wants to fund that purchase? What are they going to get for that funding? When do they buy? Who talks to them? Never forget your funding source. That's clearly critical. Your value proposition. Like, what are you solving for? Are you solving it for someone who knows they have a problem, and be ready to prove it? Again, the case studies, the data points, the peer-reviewed studies, the pilot programs, anything you can bring to bear that backs up your value proposition is going to be really important. And then kind of the big obvious one, like leverage those trends, know what employers are buying, but also stand out. You're different. You have to make sure that your solution is somehow differentiated, whether it's cheaper, whether it's faster, whether it's easier, whatever that is. What is that you solve that you are bringing to market that no one else has? So that's kind of it for me. If you want to ask me any questions, that's my email address. That's my WhatsApp number. You can feel free to reach out. I'm happy to send you the deck. Happy to, answer any questions, have any conversations. And with that, I think there looks like I can stop sharing, and it looks like there were some questions in the chat other than the people who added their fireflies and their AI notes. Well, I guess those were it. Mia, do you see anything else in yours?
No, I don't see anything, but if anyone has any questions, they can unmute themselves or write them in the chat.
All right. Well, I hope that doesn't mean it was totally unhelpful. You have no questions. Maybe it means it answered everything, or maybe it means you need time to sort of chew on it. But as I said, you feel free to reach out anytime. I'm always happy to have a conversation. If you are actually in Israel, I'm there usually twice a year, happy to meet for coffee, but definitely available to, hop on a video call and have a chat.
Thank you so much, Claudia.
Thank
It
you
was,
very much.
as usual.
My pleasure. Take care,
Thank you
everyone.
very much, Claudia.
Claudia.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.